if something isn't being observed by an observer, it does not physically exist in space-time. It's not there. It exists as a probability. And only when observed or thought about does it exist in space-time. And so that's incredibly massive, because that literally, in my mind, shows us that consciousness is fundamental. What really differentiates Project Paradox from anything else that's available on the web is there is no single repository for all things phenomenon related. My database, which is intended to be the world's largest aggregated database of phenomenon related information ever, period.
Welcome to Cosmic Convergence. My name is Daniel. I also go by Grey Druid, and I am here with my three other brothers, and we're going to be going into a lot of different things today. Thank you, John, for joining us tonight, and we goes by We Are One Consciousness, and thank you, Chris, as Transcendence. And we have our special guest here, Chase, who goes by Morpheus on TikTok. So, Chase, you're a passionate investigator of the unexplained phenomena with over 15,000 hours of research. You're also a seasoned experiencer of the phenomenon and have had sightings of UAPs many times. In your professional career, you are skilled at engineering, market research, and AI application. And currently, you are building a comprehensive database connecting millions of data points across diverse areas, all relating to the phenomena. Utilizing AI collaboration to uncover connections, fostering community involvement, and ensuring project sustainability through a staged launch subscription model. Thank you again, Chase, for joining us tonight on this. And I'm super excited to get into these details. But first, kind of want to break this all down. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into this point with working in the kind of the phenomena, being an experiencer, and how did you get to that point from coming with your background?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Grey Druid, and We Are One Consciousness and Transcendence guys. I really appreciate it. It's always fun to discuss the phenomenon with all of you, and I really appreciate you having me on. I don't want to just drone on here, but I'll give you the 30,000 foot view. So I've experienced strange things for the majority of my life. The earliest recollection I have was around the age of 10. My mother and I were chased down the highway by a bright light that literally, when this thing lit up, it seemed as if it was day outside. And it kind of the cliche story where we're the only car on the highway. We've got a dog in the back seat. After this event, my mom turns to 10-year-old me and says, "I don't think they took us because of the dog." And I remember thinking to myself how silly that was. The next significant event that I had was at the age of 15, and I saw a triangular UFO. Really, really close. It was right across the street from my mother's house at the time, above the houses across the street. And it was as big as a shopping mall. I know that's cliche as well, but this is a massive craft that was barely moving. I estimate maybe a mile per hour along the road. And it was also moving backward, meaning, the kind of the apex of an aircraft typically is the front portion of the aircraft, right? Because it cuts through the atmosphere. But this was backwards, and it was also inverted degrade. It was on its side, like this instead of this. And I watched that for 20 minutes. Lights flashing on it. I could see the side of the vehicle facing me. I ran into the house to try to wake my mother up during that experience, and she was out, unresponsive. I also tried to get a camera. At the time, we had actual film in cameras, and I think the film had been used up, or the batteries were dead. Ran outside, watched this thing continue on until I couldn't see it over the tree line, and then my mother woke up and absolutely refused to drive down the street. Wouldn't let me walk down the street to see this thing. And then there've been other experiences. I shortly after that, I saw what I thought was a ghost in my room. It looked like a star in the corner of the bedroom. It flew at me, and it was a face, and it freaked me out. And I ran out of the bedroom. I've had other types of experiences. I was with a good friend maybe 5 or 6 years later, and we were approached by an orb. It flew down from the tree line on a road that we were walking, maybe 20 feet in front of us. It was about 3 feet in diameter. It was about 3 feet off the ground. It hovered there, this luminous, multicolored orb. I tried to walk toward it. My buddy stopped me, and then it flew off to the other side of the road and into the trees, and it was gone. More recently, 5 years ago, I had some really significant experiences, and you asked me kind of, what has been the motivating factor to get me to really research this stuff, and it's what happened 5 years ago. So, I had these strange experiences all throughout my childhood and kind of early adulthood, but strangely, I brushed off most of them. The triangle, I thought, well, it's probable that we're not the only intelligent life in the universe, so that was an alien ship, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time and kind of justified it that way. The other experiences, I couldn't explain. I knew I wasn't asleep. I knew I wasn't under the influence of anything. So coming from this perspective where I thought I was really rational, logical, level-headed when it came to accepted science and academic principles, I guess I just kind of dismissed them because I couldn't explain them. And 5 years ago, or almost 6 years ago now, for some reason, I was compelled to really start to investigate this stuff. There was an inciting incident with a buddy of mine that happened to work in the Northeast. He was DOD at the time. He was working at the Army base that that SRI, the Stanford Research Institute, started, with all the remote viewing program, Project Stargate. So he was there, and he had a conversation that he was able to convey to me. And the conversation was centered around the legitimacy of Roswell and also the legitimacy of the remote viewing program. And now that I'm thinking about it, I may have sent him something, and that may have caused him to go out and meet with these colonels. But regardless, the feedback that he got was Roswell's still classified, and there's a reason for that, and it doesn't have anything to do with any of the stuff that the public was told officially. And the remote viewing program is still operational, and it's being managed by the CIA instead of the Department of the Army. So I started researching this stuff, and I started with really physical things. Initially, I started with animal mutilations and cattle mutilations mostly, and that led me into Linda Howell's work. She was one of the original kind of heavy hitters when it came to cattle mutilation studies in the United States in the 70s and the 80s. Really phenomenal academic work. I mean, she's got textbooks that you can buy, and phenomenal documentaries going out and meeting with these ranchers and studying the MO for the classic cattle mutilation and those kinds of things. And so I thought this was a good place to start because it's tangible evidence. And maybe I can sit in a pasture and, throw some ghillie suit over myself and see a UFO. I don't know. So I began to do this, and I'm also talking to researchers, ufologists in Europe and here in the States, gathering more information, reaching out to Linda, trying to gain access to her database so that I can further my study and access some documentation that would have been a little more difficult to retrieve. Over the course of this, I have this experience where I get off the phone, I have my own interview with some experiencers that have seen triangles just like me. And something physiological happened to me that caused me to feel like $1 million. Standing in my kitchen, I'm thinking about the nature of reality. I'm thinking about how, Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have this theory of an orchestrated objective reductionism in the brain, how microtubulin can potentially or are potentially interfacing with a quantum field of consciousness. And I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about a paper that was co-authored by Eric Davis, that also talks about the nature of microtubules and interfacing with some kind of quantum field, and how many close encounter experiencers with craft specifically are reported to have a higher frequency of experiencing what we call coincidences. And I'm thinking about this because the person I just got off the phone with that also saw a triangle is telling me that him and his girlfriend, who were the witnesses to the triangle, are having this increased frequency of coincidence. They're thinking of things, and people are showing up at their house with these things. And this is something that Kevin Day of the USS Nimitz also reported. If you go back and you look through his interviews, he talks about this too. There's an interview where he's on his property and he's talking about wanting ice cream with his cousin, and they walk back down to the house and somebody's there with ice cream. And there are these little things that occur, but it's the frequency at which they occur. Those thoughts led to this physiological reaction that I had, and I was compelled to go outside, and I kind of just on the spot made up my own close encounter of the fifth kind protocol. I closed my eyes. I could feel everything around me. I don't know how else to describe that. Kind of like Morpheus in the Matrix. There's nothing special about me. I don't mean it that way, but I kind of seized the code. I could feel the things around me with my eyes closed, and I envisioned myself 50 feet above my body, and then 100 feet, and all the features of the geography around me. I flew out over the Gulf of Mexico, up into space, and then back down. And I'm doing all this in my head, right? This is a visualization process. And this is about 30 seconds, the whole process is pretty quick. As soon as I open my eyes, I ask the question, does thought create reality? And a light appears in the sky. And it's not a light that I can identify, and Gray, you mentioned, I have an engineering background. Just for the viewers, if it makes any difference to any of you, I've worked for NASA. I've worked in aerospace. I know what a plane looks like. I know what a drone looks like. I know what birds look like. Right? I know what balloons look like. Of course, everybody can make mistakes. Our visual perception is relatively flawed to the next guy or the next gal. But generally speaking, I can identify things in the sky, and I could not identify these lights. And in that moment, kind of the engineer in me took over, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do it again. Like, if this thing is showing up because of the question I asked and the process that I just went through, I'm going to do it again. I want to see the repeatability. And I do it again, and the same thing happens. Different light appears in the sky, flies across the sky. I do it again, third time, different light appears in the sky, flies across the sky. I'm married at the time. My wife comes out. The family's eating dinner at the table, and I'm standing in the backyard. She comes out and she says, what are you doing? And I said, I think I'm manifesting UFOs. And she calls me crazy, and she demands that I show her. And I do it, and two of these things show up, and they spin around each other and fly off in different directions. And so she loses her mind, and I've got to sit her down and calm her down. But that experience was the inciting event that caused me to put in 15,000 plus hours of research, and that number is just a number that I've kind of approximated based on the 5 years and the amount of time that I dedicate to this every day. It's reading books, it's watching YouTube videos, it's reading academic reports, it's reading experiencer reports, right? And it's not just UFOs, it's not just alien abduction reports or accounts. It's literally everything that could be classified in the phenomenon, because I'm convinced that the phenomenon is about consciousness, right? At its center, it's about the experience that we're having right now. And all these things that we call bizarre, alien abductions, out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, extrasensory perception, remote viewing, telepathy, cryptid sightings, right? All of it.
It's all related.
It's all related, right? Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what I've done. I went down the abduction rabbit hole, and I read all of Hopkins, all of Mack, all of Jacobs' work. I went down the other rabbit holes. There are more. There are Carla Turner and other individuals in alien abduction research. But that's kind of what I've done. I've had some other crazy experiences that I think I've shared with you guys before. that I'm happy to go into, but I'm going to pause because I think I'm kind of winded, but I hope that that's what you wanted.
I know we've all chatted before. Again, we were able to do an interview with on Transcendence's channel, and really enjoyed like going over all those details. And I want to kind of hit some of those, as well. But I kind of wanted to dive a little bit into what made you potentially thinking that it's just ETs, and how did it for you cross over into it's about consciousness?
Well, that first CE5 experience, with the five or the six, actually it was seven. After my wife went inside, a green triangle flew over my head, translucent, green, weird triangle. So it was that experience because in that moment, I was trying to work out what was happening, and in my mind, there were only two possible explanations. Well, three. Either I'm crazy and this isn't really happening, but I had a witness, so that wasn't the case. Or that's human technology that's interfacing with thought, but that would seem to indicate that there's something special about me, and there's not. And also, there are many reports of comparable experiences happening to thousands, if not millions, of other people. So there's nothing special about me. Humans don't have that kind of technology, to just appear, as far as I'm aware, in this luminous orb of light. So then it seemed to be the most logical conclusion for me was this is something more fundamental that interacts with everyone at one point or another, and consciousness must be fundamental and it must be non-local, right? That experience led me to really digging into the concept of non-locality and looking at the physics that's out there that kind of touches on non-locality. At that moment, for about the next 2 or 3 years, my focus was on trying to explain my own experiences. Why the triangle? Why did the light follow me and my mom? Why did I see the face? I came into additional research on psychedelic drugs. Now, specifically dimethyltryptamine. And what stood out to me with respect to DMT, and specifically NN-DMT, was the fact that people had the alien abduction experience on NN-DMT. People had the out-of-body experience on NN-DMT. People had the life review described in the near-death experience on NN-DMT, and many others. They encounter reptilian beings, insectoid beings, gray beings, other types of non-human intelligences that seemed completely autonomous. And the leading researchers in the world are convinced that these entities are in fact autonomous and they're not derived from any kind of biological, neurological mechanism. That led me to seeking that experience myself. And those experiences have further kind of solidified, at least for me, these ideas about the seemingly infinite mind, being immortal. I think the immortal soul, having different experiences, being able to jump out of the body. Many alien abductees talk about, and Gray, we recently spoke about this concept of the body being a vessel. And when you have an experience like that, whether it's a naturally induced out-of-body experience or induced by some kind of substance like in DMT, you quickly realize more to existence and perception than just the human experience that you're having. So I think I've kind of jumped ahead of the horse in the cart with respect to your question, Gray. But yeah, that was really the inciting event, because it made me realize that thought was non-local. And if thought was non-local, then maybe this idea or hypothesis that a field of consciousness is actually what is fundamental, and space-time is derivative from that field of thought, of consciousness.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't taken the time to actually read the article, but I think it was last week some article came out that scientists have tied in essentially that the universe is all connected through a consciousness. If that's the case, then of course they're finally catching up a little bit. At least a select group of small individualized scientists are coming and catching up with the spirituality aspect, which, has to deal with a universal consciousness. And we are one consciousness, that of the universe. Through my own experiences too, what you say is very sound. Very sound. I mean, I've had several experiences since the last time we talked on Transcendence's interview, of having to deal with that non-localized consciousness and the out-of-body experience and abduction attempts in that vein. Once you know it, once you feel it, once you're actually experiencing it, there is no doubt. There is no doubt at all of what's going on. It's not simply fabrication of the imagination. When I had my past too, there was no psychedelics involved at all. Absolutely none. How do you prepare for something like a download and starting to get all this information where like this field of consciousness is just going like, okay, and it's just telling you things, like things from how possibly these NHIs or these UFOs, whether it be like plasmoids, which I wanted to touch base on, which is a big thing now. All of a sudden, everybody's talking about plasmoids, right? And you're talking about your experiences with like these shapes and these orbs and these triangles, and NASA. I don't know. I apologize again, but I'm starting to see these reports or these peer-reviewed papers that are supposedly coming out with NASA, where they're really trying to put some of these things that are seen from like ISS or during the STS missions with orbs and coming in and out of the atmosphere and such, that they're actually plasmoid, and there might be a consciousness to them. Duh. Okay. And so they're trying to figure out a way on like how to retrofit some satellites or put new satellites out there to try to trap them and capture them, which is just like crazy to me. Of course, we would try to do that rather than trying to just understand and communicate, right? But that kind of like, when I was thinking about that report or that paper that's supposedly going around that NASA is actually doing this research, and you're discussing your experiences with these orbs and these lights and such, and of course that unified field of consciousness, it just makes sense. So if we're able to tap into that field of consciousness or be one with it, be on the same frequency or wavelength as it, we can go ahead and communicate in some way, shape, or form by like calling them down or whatever through a CE5 experience that is you're tailoring to yourself. You're not really following anybody else's protocol. But when I'm having these downloads and all this stuff is just coming into my head, it's coming into my head through those kind of things. And then again, I just think that once we start tapping into these things, not just merely accidental, but with, good intent, I would hope, then we can start understanding these aspects more, at least as much as we can possibly think of at the time. So when you're discussing your DMT experiences, you have like Terrence McKenna and such like that, who you talked about the machine elves and all of his contacts that he had. I know that they're also trying to do studies to where they're doing a slow drip of DMT into volunteers to try to actually map out those realms, because they're hearing of these, science is hearing of these experiencers that are experiencing a lot of the same entities, a lot of the same
consistency
realms. Yes, it's all consistency within these realms. So they're trying to map it. There's a group that's actually trying to map it. And that just, again, shows to me, and I want to know what your take about this is that is just another part of all of this, is just part of that field of consciousness.
Here's my take, John. I want to preface this too for viewers that might have a tendency or an urge to reduce your confidence level or in what people say when they talk about psychedelics. Okay, there's a significant difference between dimethyltryptamine and other psychedelics, but there is also a significant, monumental level of research that's been done on psilocybin, on 5-MeO-DMT, on NN-DMT, on LSD, on you name it, ketamine, you name it. Now, I personally have not studied or researched anything really other than NN-dimethyltryptamine and a little bit of psilocybin, because there's some really interesting research out of Johns Hopkins that's come out for psilocybin. There's phenomenal health benefits associated with microdosing psilocybin, but I'm not here to market anything or sell anything. I just want to be sure that people understand I've had experiences without the use of any substances. Right after that C5 experience, I was at the house alone, and there was a poltergeist experience that happened, what could be classified, where an entity showed up, came into the house, tried to come into the bedroom with me, made a bunch of noise, slammed the door. I've got it tattooed on my arm, as I do some other experiences. These things are not things that I take lightly. And so I don't know. I've come across people in mentioning DMT that, they have this tendency to immediately think, oh, this guy's just taking a bunch of drugs. That's not the case. And if you're really interested in NN-DMT or any substance, you got to do your research. And so I did before I partook in any kind of experiments on my own. I researched everything. I read everything that Dr. Andrew Gallimore, who's probably the leading authority on NN-DMT in the world, everything that Rick Strassman did out at the University of Arizona in the big DMT study, which is highlighted in the DMT, a Spirit Molecule documentary that's available on YouTube and elsewhere. I've read all the books that are published on DMT, all the trip reports. I probably consumed, I don't know, 1,000 trip reports before I actually took DMT myself. So having said all of that, so DMTX, so that's extended state dimethyltryptamine, NN-DMT dimethyltryptamine studies. Initially, extended state was proposed by Dr. Andrew Gallimore and Rick Strassman. They co-authored a paper, and they hypothesized that because of the way that DMT is metabolized in the system, right? DMT, especially NN-DMT, when it's orally consumed, when it's smoked, it's very quick acting, right? If you take what's considered a breakthrough dose, which depends on your body weight, but is typically between 30 and 50 milligrams, you're going to be out for about half an hour, probably less, 20 minutes. And then after that, you're completely back to normal. It doesn't stick around. It's not habit forming. This is not something that people want to do all the time, because it's literally like smoking something and shooting off into outer space. When you go into a hospital, they have the IV machines, and the IV machine it's called a PID device. It's a proportional integral derivative device, and it based on your specific metabolism, it will inject a certain amount of whatever substance in based on its setting. So they wanted to do that with NN-DMT, and they did. They did it at the University of London. There's another group here in the States that's doing it, I think, somewhere out west, California, Nevada, Arizona, somewhere out there. But the one in London is kind of the alpha group, if you will, and they've gone through a couple of trials. They've come out and talked about their own experiences somewhat. It's really interesting because the researchers that have been involved in that project so far that have come out, while there hasn't been much said, there's probably an hour or two worth of an interview in which they actually talk about what they experienced. And the entities did not like the fact that they were doing that. And they didn't punish them or anything, but they showed up, and the researchers went, "We're here to do this." And they went, "Yeah, we know what you're doing. Stop that." But I think, yeah, John, I think that what DMT does is it facilitates that transition to, I don't know what to call it. It's like a consciousness highway. My experiences on DMT have been consistent themes in that I'm always aware of being back to that place. I always kind of go, oh yeah, that's right. I remember this place. I remember this feeling. But there's a lot of shifting around. I might traverse 40 or 50 different realms with entities in them over the course of 30 seconds. I see the rise and fall of buildings being constructed and demolished, really kind of odd things like that. And then if you consume enough to get to that breakthrough point, you find stability wherever you land. And so I've landed, if we're going to call it that, in the classic alien abduction experience before, where I'm on a table, a metal table with an entity over me that's working on my head, one that's farther away in the background, in the direction that my feet are pointing. And there are aspects to that experience that I'm open to sharing. I've also had the classic life review experience with DMT, where I've seen all of my life, Chase's life, every instant, every thought. Like, in this moment in time, I don't know about you guys, but personally, I can't think of every thought that I've had. But in these moments, it's every thought, every feeling, every experience. I mean, it's profound. And it's there. And these are the kinds of experiences that near-death experiencers report all the time. So, I think maybe one of the really valuable things about something like an NDMT, while it is heavily criticized, and it's criticized from within the community as well, because it's often perceived to be kind of a crutch. Like, yeah, sure, you can smoke that and you can go have an experience, but you can also do it just by meditating. There's truth to that, but at the same time, I think it's a tool, and if you're able to use it, then I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I'm not scared of it, but it's
it's owed respect. It's owed respect as any other psychedelic is when trying to tap. I'll just say my terminology, trying to tap into the universe. And there's other ways to do it. So I just wanted to. I think what we're getting at, we could all agree upon, that we're not saying, hey, in order to have any of these experiences to the viewer, you must take psychedelics, it must be DMT or, psilocybin or LSD or anything. No, we're not saying that. It's just there's many different paths that lead to the same destination. If you feel, that you want to work on it just through meditation, hey, that's cool. I'm not going to put you down or anything like that. That's the path that works for you the best. If you like to have it a mixture, that's fine. If you just want to do it through the medicinal path, then by all means. So, we're not saying, hey, the only way to do this is to, go ahead and start ingesting a whole bunch of stuff. And when you do, you have to research it responsibly.
Yeah.
Okay. You have to know what you're getting into. And like I said earlier, I thought I was taking a proper dosage of Delta 8. I did not. And I was not prepared, and thankfully I was able to come out of it learning some things aside from don't take that much. I'm actually thinking about not taking any at all anymore, but that's fine. It's just one of those things. You got to know what you're getting into, because it's not some party thing. We're not talking about taking it and going to a club or, anything of the sort. This is what the shamans did. This is medicine that's been put here on the earth for us to experience these other dimensions and such.
And there are, I'm sorry to interject, but no. While it's on my mind, there are other experiences that I've had with DMT that have confirmed for me that what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing, is in fact something that is real in this reality, waking state, waking life, that I've never experienced before. So in the same way that remote viewers will see a building and then later on drive by the building and go, oh yeah, I saw that while I was remote viewing. I've had those experiences with DMT, right? I've seen people that I've never met before prior to meeting them with DMT.
Yes.
And I've also had entities come through that, I think I told Gray this, that my cat has noticed. Really bizarre. Like, entity will pop out of the wall in one experience, pops out of the wall, looks at me, smiles at me. The cat looks at the thing, meows at it, it pops back into the wall, and the cat is a cat. So she was.
It's just like, whatever.
I see that all the time, But she saw it. She recognized it. Stuff like that. especially
Animals know.
seeing someone.
I also
So
wanted to touch up on something you guys were bringing up earlier, and you, John, where you were mentioning how they're studying how like the universe is conscious, right?
Yes.
And what's interesting is that there have been other articles that have come out that now they're starting to theorize that the universe is also holographic in nature. And what's interesting is that you have, so kind of like fractals too, like it goes on and on and on. And what's interesting is that you have near-death experiencers also reporting this. And then you even have some people who channel beings reporting the same information. And one particular person is channeler is Barbara Brodsky, who channels a being called Aaron. And he says that the universe, everything technically is made out of love, consciousness, and light, literally like light energy, which goes hand in hand with what near-death experiencers are reporting about seeing deceased loved ones or spirit guides or what have you as being different shades of light energy. So, and there's, you'll hear things like, oh, everything was light there, or, oh, the spirit guides were different shades of light or different colors of light, or my brother was a particular shade of light and my spirit guide was even brighter than my brother. You'll hear things like that. So I find that interesting. And it's just, I never expected, like researching into near-death experiences, that it would bring me into the UFO stuff. But you'll hear things about communication with beings and that are also made out of light or translucent. Chris Bledsoe and his regression transcription talks about the beings are beings of light energy. It's all coming together from different fields, which is I find very fascinating.
Well, what's one of the best ways, and I'll see if Chase, if you disagree or not, because I'm curious about your thoughts about this. One of the best ways, of course, to transfer information is through light. Okay, as far as like, let's say the speed of light, with the technology that we, at least as a civilization, realize now, like light is one of the fastest ways to transfer information, and everything comes from thought. Okay, so there you go, thoughts going at faster, or if not at the speed of light. Okay, so like this, somebody thought of this. Okay, so if you think about the universe as being a conscious creator, okay, and having that consciousness throughout it, that everything it thinks of can be created. So anything that we think of can be created because we're part of that thought process as well on the whole macrocosm scale. So, it's that, yes, everything has its different light densities as far as information to us, to everything, to the ants, to, you start getting into Native American animism and such like that, right? Everything is a living organism. Earth itself is a part of the organism of the larger universe, sun, et cetera, et cetera. Like NASA doing, like, finding out the perfect times to launch missile or satellites and stuff is dependent on where Saturn and Jupiter are, as far as it's just all that's there for a reason, right? So it's like everything fits together. There's not really a difference now between, as Steve Mera would say, between or there shouldn't be a difference between what people consider paranormal and what people consider UFO, NHI, kind of like, it's all the same thing. It really truly is. It just comes in different forms, right? So I know I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, and I apologize for that. But everything is, we'll find out more when we stop having this division between, like, let's say paranormal and UFO researcher, or this kind of science and more of the spiritual side of science with the consciousness and the universe and stuff like that. But my point is if everything is thought and the universe is creating it, and we're a part of the universe, so things like a microphone or a mouse, right, then it's that way everywhere, because you first have to have the concept of thinking about it. And so we're all here because the universe had a concept of thinking about us. I mean, it just kind of seems like it makes perfect sense to me. And then especially when you start experiencing such things, when you're tapping into that field and you're having the communication with with entities or whatever within these different dimensions, and you're able to have some kind of communication with them, right? Might not be fully able to understand the communication at the time, but and it doesn't require, after a while, it does not require any kind of plant medicine or anything of the sort. They could just come in and out at any time or per your request, which I find that most of the time my pleasant experiences is per my request. Whereas sometimes the more negative, kind of like dark night of the soul stuff comes through. We don't know, and so the best thing to do is just have all the research available for us, the scientific research, the metaphysical research, all the spirituality, and try to put it in some kind of database, which you're working on a database, right? About, from experiencers to all kinds of other categories that have to deal around this phenomena, which I believe is all interconnected. And so I'd like to segue that into, if Daniel or Chris wouldn't mind, start asking kind of questions about that database that you're building, because I find that fascinating.
Yeah, of course. Happy and excited to share that with you guys and the audience. But just before, I would say, look, I'm the holographic universe theory, I think is really sound, and that's one of the books, the holographic universe. Forgive me, the author has slipped my mind, but that was one of the initial books in my research that really kind of grabbed me because it made a lot of sense. Since then, 2 years ago or whatever, we know that there was a Nobel Prize awarded to 3 now Nobel laureates for proving that local realism is false. Right? That's accepted science now. And what that means, and again, there's a lot of miscommunication, misunderstanding online about what that means, just like there is with respect to the modified double slit experiments and how thought literally influences the outcome. A lot of people, even physicists, some physicists now, don't fully understand what's been proven by organizations such as the Noetic Institute. But back to this Nobel Prize that was awarded for proving that that local realism is false. Literally what it means is that if something isn't being observed by an observer, it does not physically exist in space-time. It's not there. It exists as a probability. And only when observed or thought about does it exist in space-time. And so that's incredibly massive, because that literally, in my mind, shows us that consciousness is fundamental. It shows us that you have to have thought in order to have physical stuff. And so, I think the holographic universe, and you mentioned light. I had this idea 3 years ago that maybe light was this transmedium substance in which thought, data, information was transmitted from the non-physical to the physical. And I think it is, because a lot of life between life studies, Chris, you mentioned the different lights and the colors. Dr. Newton, in all of his work in studies between lives, he talks about how souls have different colors in their orbs of light, and one might be white. I don't remember
frequencies.
Right. But based on your level of knowledge or something, you might be a purple and I might be a white because I'm newer or something like that, right? But it resonates, and there are those correlations and similarities between his work and the work that you were referencing. And they also talk about the web of interconnectedness that's experienced in space. Why is it that all or many near-death experiencers find themselves floating at outer space? Why? Like, there's got to be a reason for that. And I think the reason is that stars, and networks of stars are literally these highways of data and information in which consciousness comes from and manifests as human beings or lizard people or the blob on sector 4 alpha 9 or whatever, right? or algae on a pond, whatever it is. So I think there's something to that, John.
It's like we're all it's like we're all nodes, or beacons upon this field of vibrational consciousness.
Yeah.
And so we're receiving this stuff, we're receptive to this stuff as this consciousness just goes throughout the entire universe. So, if you look at everybody's probably seen the photos by now. If they haven't, please look it up, where they look at the universe and how it's all interconnected. They're trying to find the dark matter or whatever, but it's all interconnected and wired. And then you have the scan of the human brain and all of the synapses and such that goes on with the electrical currents of the brain. And it's the same. It's not even damn near the same. It is the same.
It's the same. Yeah.
It's the same. I don't know how much. I think it's just getting this information out, the information that we're talking about tonight, to everybody. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, right? Is to try to have everybody gain this information, so it becomes almost like public knowledge. It's just not there. It gets buried in headlines about other things that's going on around the world, and if we could put it more in layman's terms too, which I think you're great at doing, Chase, you're putting it more in layman's terms so that people like me, I love science, but once they introduced math into it, I was like, yeah, I'm done, because that's just not the way I'm wired. So, but you're putting a really good way to it. And so I do appreciate that.
My question in regards to your work, your new project here, because I don't know the specifics of how it's supposed to be done or anything, but I heard that you're using AI or trying to implement AI. And my question was, if this is not what you're already doing, implement AI to gather data in such a way so that, being that it's reaching out and looking for information, abductees, near-death experiences, consciousness, all of that stuff, to somewhat come up with a conclusion of, yes, non-local consciousness is real, or filter theory is actually true, and yes, we're not alone in the universe, based on sheer data, because it's the data I'm just throwing numbers out here, but says, yeah, the probability is 99.99% that this is actually correct, based on all of the data that I've retrieved from 10 million sources or wherever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. Absolutely, Chris. So that is an aspect of the project. Unfortunately, the AI, at least the AI that I'm able to develop and utilize that's out on the market, it can help get us about 50% of the way there with respect to the things that you said. The other 50%, going out and getting the data, it has some capabilities there, but it's really more limited.
I see why that's challenging.
Yeah, it really is, especially when it comes to scraping data off of websites. A lot of websites will offer their own APIs that can be integrated. They give you the robot text, so they tell you what's allowed and what's not allowed. And then there are the very obvious things you have to watch out for, copyright infringement and those kinds of things. Fortunately, from an educational or academic perspective, copyright infringement is pretty easy to avoid as long as you don't hand somebody a full-on book or a paper that's costs money elsewhere, the whole thing. But snippets within reason are okay. The LLM can be trained based off of that information. So, I've come to the conclusion that non-locality consciousness is real. Mainstream science is wrong. These theories need to be challenged. Clearly, people are being abducted. Clearly, the abduction phenomenon is related to DMT experiences, related to this, and looking at all the different interdisciplinary studies and things that are connected in psychology and in physics and in mathematics, everything, right? That is a part of the project. So to set the stage, I'm calling this project discoverparadox.com. When this goes live, that website will be live and individuals will be able to go, put in their email, and receive updates on the project as they unfold. I'll make sure that there's a routine kind of update that goes out, maybe once a week, maybe every other week, that talks about the development of the project, the different initiatives, what we're doing with data, what sets us apart. But what really differentiates Project Paradox from anything else that's available on the web is there is no single repository for all things phenomenon related. There are some websites like MUFON and NUFORC that have significant amounts of data. NUFORC has about 147,000 reports that you can download at any given point that go all the way back to, I think, the early 90s. But they're not doing anything with that data. Some of it's really valuable. You've got really detailed descriptions of UAP or UFOs sightings, sometimes cryptid sightings, entity sightings, sometimes abduction reports in that data. And again, some of it is really valuable and feature rich, detail rich. On the other hand, there are a lot of entries that don't really tell you much of anything. I saw a light in the sky with literally, you only know it's in one state. You don't even have the city. So these organizations, NUFORC and MUFON specifically, have these massive amounts of data, but they're not really doing anything with the data. And it's only available in one format. There are researchers like us that have gone out and made maps, but most of the maps leave a lot to be desired. Most of the maps only have the NUFORC data or only have the MUFON data. Most of the maps don't take into account historical sightings that are reported further back than about 1896. You've got this massive wave of airship sightings between 1860, 1850, and right before the beginning of the 1890s or 1900s, and most of them don't have that information integrated. The point is, all of that data is on the web, and if it's not on the web, it's in print. And between what's in print and what's on the web, there are hundreds of terabytes of data, millions of photographs and videos, millions of experiencer reports, people getting on Reddit, people getting on various other threads, 4chan, and talking about the out-of-body experiences they had, the near-death experiences they had, the fact that they saw their dead grandmother tell them where the jewelry was when she passed away, or where her dad left
evidence.
the card, right? All this evidential mediumship stuff. There's so much information out there, and there's not a single place to go. There are some really phenomenal resources like erowid.org, that's EROWID.org, which is information that's going to be also integrated into my database, which is intended to be the world's largest aggregated database of phenomenon-related information ever, period. And it's not just gathering all of this information from everywhere. And when I mean all the information, I mean all the information like we talked about earlier: UFOs, alien abductions, cryptids, ghost sightings, poltergeist activity, ESP, telepathy, missing 411 information, all of it, right? Anything that could be considered paranormal, supernatural. And in addition to that, all of the academic and historical information, comparative religion, occultism, esoteric knowledge, right? All of that stuff, because I don't think if you really are going to research this, you can't really exclude any of this information. There are going to be inaccuracies. There are going to be some fictitious reports. Inevitably, when you have a body that encompasses 10 million or 50 million reports, there's going to be some nonsense in it. But that's another aspect, Chris, where the AI can really help, because the AI on the back end can look at the entire database. And this is after the database has been standardized and normalized. So as you can imagine, people that are reporting Bigfoot sightings are going to capture different variables and features than people that are reporting and cataloging UFOs. So for instance, I might have air temperature with most of my reports for Bigfoot sightings in the United States, but I'm not going to have that for most of my reports for UFOs. So on the back end in the database, this is a really complex thing to do, because you have to standardize all the data. But once all that's done, the AI can look through all of it and be trained on all of it. The AI can do exactly what you said. It can come out and say, yeah, there are these emergent patterns between alien abduction reports and near-death experiencers. There does seem to be some correlation between the nature of consciousness and this other body of work. Or, maybe we find out that people that experience and witness Yetis and Bigfoots just so happen to be another type of experiencer, that some kind of other emergent pattern that hasn't been identified. There's semantic analysis that can be done on the back end, etymological analysis that can be done on the back end, which really helps in looking at the historical timeline, because we know that things like UFOs, ghost sightings, occultism, these things have been talked about and reported on for thousands of years. So I think it's a massive oversight to kind of map UFOs over the past 70 years and then just completely disregard
Absolutely.
or exclude reports further back. I aim to offer the majority of the content for free, right? You'll have to get on the website once it's live, create a simple user account, but you'll be able to access the majority of the data. The paid version, which is going to be a really minimal monthly fee, is going to be mostly targeted toward people that want to use the AI or the built-in database tools to really kind of do that emergent pattern analysis. Or, for groups like this group, maybe you decide as a podcasting organization that you want to have a show all about Bigfoots and Yetis, right? For whatever reason, that's arbitrarily the first thing that I picked. But you could utilize this as kind of one of your primary resources to pull up all the illustrations, all the images, all the videos, all the transcriptions, and all the reports, and narrow it down using the AI however you want to refocus it or aim it, so that you can better, format your own material, whether that's a show or, outline for a show or an academic paper. My hope is that this can be an academic resource, and that professors and graduate students can utilize this to do the same thing. Look at the frequency of mental illness, schizophrenia, in relation to one of these kinds of other data sets, right? Again, you can't exclude one without the other. Gray Druid sent me something that I came across a few years ago, just a few days ago. He sent it to me, and it was, what was it, Gray? That schizophrenics.
Blind people.
Nobody that's blind has ever been schizophrenic, right? So
blew my mind.
That data point, or the fact that there are things like pareidolia, and trying to correlate what that means to some of the things that people see. Because I think there are schizophrenics out there that fully believe that the things that they see are real, and furthermore, I know several schizophrenics, not very well, but well enough. I've had conversations with them in interviews that I've done, because entities that they draw and illustrate are some of the same entities that are experienced with the use of DMT. So there are these correlations that I think are really, really often overlooked. And my hope is that this database is not only, I know it's the largest in the world. It's already the largest in the world, and it's not even live yet. My hope is that it will continue to be primary repository for all this information, historical record of everything. And I mean everything. I've gone out and scraped Reddit using their API. I've captured every comment that anybody has made in the last decade on the platform in r/UFOs, r/aliens. I've done this for a lot of other sites, and capturing this data and putting it into the database. There's so much valuable information there. And the AI on the back end, Chris, also compares these reports. So if you have an experience, and let's say you see a UFO in the sky, you make a report on MUFON's site, and then you go on Reddit and you're talking about it on Reddit, the AI, in theory, should see your report and say, this is the same report, and put them together. And so that aspect of managing the database is also kind of autonomous as well. But this is something that I think is really needed. Nobody's done it. I haven't found it. If you guys find something like it, let me know. I think Erowid is the closest. Erowid has really kind of showcased the power of thoughtful data curation. They've put together a list of experiences it's everything from lucid dreaming to every kind of drug experience you can imagine, out of body experiences. But they've organized it really well. You can go through these different experiences and click through them. But even there, it's kind of clunky. So I'm putting a lot of effort into the design of the dashboard. It's something that should be really, really easy to use, easy to navigate, easy to filter down to what you want. And that monthly fee from those higher subscriptions is literally to keep the team paid, because I have to hire a team to manage this. This is not something that one person can do. It requires a database engineer, at least one. It requires multiple dedicated desk researchers, at least a couple of project managers, because literally what you have to do is you have to go scour the internet, scour the physical world, interview everybody that has personal private libraries, scan all the material that is physical that isn't already in digital print, catalog it, input it into the database, train the large language model on it. And then you have to, of course, do that with all the other material, and you have to keep track of all this and make sure that you're not repeating things that you've done prior. You have to continually consume new information that's published. This is a lot of work. I was thinking that the higher end subscription would be $20 or $30 a month. Maybe 20 for middle of the road, you get all the features, and then 30 maybe like academic level or something. But that would literally just go to paying those people to keep consuming data, because again, there's a lot of information out there, and I'm talking about also transcribing all YouTube videos on all this stuff so that you can train the LLM further.
This is going to be worldwide, right? Do you have any, is there going to be anything to where an individual can manually put in their own experience, or would they have to go to like one of the other sites and then your AI will draw it in?
Yes, this is worldwide information. Don't want to discriminate country. These kinds of phenomena are witnessed everywhere, so it would make no sense in my mind to just capture all the Americans' experiences. We want to capture everybody's experience. That's another aspect, and another complication to the project, because there's a lot of information that isn't in English that's written and voiced in other languages that has to be decoded into English for the LLM, or maybe the LLM is trained in multiple languages. That is another part of this project. So absolutely.
So as an experiencer, am I able to actually go onto this database myself and input my information, and also, like, let's say securely, like, upload my sessions or something like that? At least that way it can stay in a database, to where maybe I won't ever be able to completely go through every one of those voice sessions, but someone might want to take it up upon themselves to go through that data, and if they were doing research or something like that along those veins. So that would be available to users as well, to be able to input that data.
From the very beginning, one of the features that I wanted to bring to the platform was a collaborative workspace. So a group like this, the four of us, we could join, our icons would be locked in, we'd be in the same group. We could share our favorited content that we found, whether it's media or text, in the database with each other. We could put that into a collaborative workspace, again, to work on specific projects. So we want to study hauntings in a specific area, whatever the case might be, right? So that would be an aspect, but also the personal experience. So on the personal profile, what I have in mind, this hasn't been designed yet, and this would be a feature that would be rolled out. And because this platform is going to have a lot of features, I believe that's how we're going to roll this out. I'm going to roll out a couple of aspects of the database for free, let people experience the website, experience the dashboard, get some feedback, and continue to roll out additional features. Have you seen the Ancestry dashboard, how you can track your lineage? Have you seen that? Okay, so think comparable to that kind of design for personal experiences, where you can go in and if you choose, you can not only catalog, journal your own personal experiences, you can choose to share those with the LLM if you want, or you can choose to keep them private and it's just there for you. You can also choose to share them with others on the platform, right, through that collaborative workspace. And the hope would be that it could evolve into something like Ancestry.com, yet, in addition to my last name is Williams, it's my great-grandfather was abducted he had classic alien abduction experiences, and his wife, was convinced that elves lived in the kitchen cabinet and spoke to her cat for 40 years, right? So there's a lot of value there. And not only training the AI and further adding to the database and the knowledge set that's collected there, but also for the individual user and being able to kind of track their own experiences and maybe map those to things they find in the database or to other users' experiences. Because, for me, this comes from a place of kind of a desire that there was a tool like this, right? I mean, I initially started researching all this to try and better explain my own experiences. After the Triangle event, I would get online at least 3 times a year, every year, and look through the MUFON reports and the NUFORC reports and Google backwards flying, triangular, perpendicular to grade, 2 white lights, 1 red light, in hopes that I could find one other person that saw exactly what I saw. And I have. I've found 3 other reports that describe the exact same thing. But it's been 30 years.
Well, here's the thing too, is, about a decade ago, or some, I was living in Cleveland, and I saw an event over downtown Cleveland, and I went on to MUFON, and I reported it. Okay, and it was there, and then years go by. You look at your report, years go by, and then now I'll be damned, I can't find that dang thing anywhere. I can't, I look up my name, because I just put my name. I don't care. I've got nothing to hide. So I put my name. I can't find it. So it's like there's this leak in this information, or some of that old information, unfortunately, may just poof because of size, or they may not find it relevant.
It was it MUFON? Was it a MUFON report?
I believe it was MUFON, and then
it's probably
tried
locked
to look
up.
through.
That's the problem with MUFON, is you can't access their database unless you give them $20 a month. And then all the data that's captured is on. I'm utilizing AWS, Amazon Web Services, so the capacity that's available there, is I could literally have 500 terabytes of data, all analyzed in the database, all accessible within milliseconds, utilizing Amazon's back end, because we all know what a beast that organization is. So they have the infrastructure to support that, and I don't have to have some massive server, but the necessity to have a database engineer, I think, is pretty critical, because, when you, even at this point, I think I've amassed by myself, in preparing the minimum viable product and preparing for launch, I've amassed something like 7 million reports so far.
What we need to do is, anybody that's out there that's watching this, that knows how to, all this computing stuff, is, first off, I want to ask, if you've gone ahead and you've started to interview / vet people yet, like these managers and people that'll be kind of, on the high end things, helping take care of the server itself. And then the second point is we need somebody, one of the viewers, to go ahead and get Chase Williams a quantum computer. So that way we don't have to ever worry about storage or anything like that, and it can compute super fast. So quantum computer for Christmas for Chase Williams. And have you started at all, or is it still too early on to start vetting people? Because it's something like this, a database like this, is serious business. You most definitely don't want just some Joe, even with a degree, to just come in. I mean, you got to vet their whole background, and and then, even then, it's still kind of risky, because not to put the fear or anything, but all it takes is one jackass to ruin it.
I think there's enough demand in the market for this. I think a lot of researchers are going to find a lot of value in this. And and if I'm right, then we're not going to have a problem hiring the team that's needed. And it wouldn't just be one database engineer. It would be a group, perhaps 2 or 3, with some hierarchies, with some checks and balances to ensure that nothing nefarious could happen. And admin keys locked up all really tight, and all those kinds of things.
Ransomware and shit.
You got to have the right people too, because I mean, ultimately you want a skilled, experienced database engineer or engineers. I'm not really focused on formal education. As long as you know what you're doing, you know what you're doing. But the other aspect is, I would like it if these people were passionate about the phenomenon in the same way, because to me, this isn't going to be work. This is fun. I'm learning and cataloging and collecting and providing some value to the community, hopefully. And so, I want the rest of the team to feel that way. And if they don't, then, I think I'd probably be failing. So I have a few people in mind, but I haven't brought it up yet, because I'm waiting for the MVP to launch. I want to see what the market response is. I want to see people coming and saying, "Oh, this is great. This is the best map, best database. Keep it going. Can't wait for the other part of the database to launch that has all the near-death experience reports in it, or whatever people are wanting." But again, it's going to be this constant process of adding and adding and adding. The information is going to be backed up, and backups of the backups, and locked up, with all kinds of auth codes. AWS has got everything locked down. Why isn't there a database like this already? Is a question that I've had recently, and I don't really understand why there isn't.
So much ridicule around the whole phenomena, and then
Yeah.
nobody wants to touch it because then they're pretty much ostracized by not just their local community, but by any community. And so, like, launching a database like this would be like, man, I'd really like to, but just like Carl Sagan, I can't really say too much because I don't want to be run out of town. And so, I mean, that's kind of the way I look at it.
One website, you go to National Archives, and you're supposed to be a bunch of stuff available, and it's not available anymore in digital format. There's a website that's just dedicated to pictures of Roswell, and there's like, I don't know, 30 images, and that's it. I don't know, maybe it's me, but I realize some of these things are done out of passion and hobby, and maybe that's it. There's just not enough people that have the time to dedicate to something like this. And admittedly, this is a really involved endeavor, right? You got to design the user interface, you got to design the database, you got to design the database schema, you got to do a lot of stuff. So maybe that's why it hasn't been done. But yeah, my hope is that it's going to be really helpful and valuable, and that central repository of all things phenomenon related, the world's largest aggregated database of phenomenon related material, media and academic reports, books, literally everything.
I don't know how many times I've tried to go on YouTube, and I'll just randomly click a video, then it corresponds, of course, with my experience that happened a few days ago. You have synchronicities and stuff, but to actually have a database is going to be fantastic. So again, I just want to applaud you for taking this on, and it's super, super exciting. And I'm, thank you so much for, again, coming on and like us being some of the first people to hear about this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on, and the conversation, the entire conversation. And by the way, you guys will be part of the alpha group. As soon as the MVP is ready to launch, you're getting full access to poke around and tell me what you think of the project and the site.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's
of
awesome.
course.
Yeah. No, it's really exciting times, and I think that this will help on so many levels for the individual. For one of the primary ones, I think that if someone were to access this database and look up anything that might have to correlate with their experiences, as Gray Druid was mentioning, can have a deep positive, even if the experience was viewed as negative by that person, at least the positive experience to know I am not alone, which is the whole reason why we've been doing these podcasts too, is to say to people, look, you're not alone. And that just upon itself, there's a gazillion other reasons why this is such a positive thing, whether it be to, hey, I have this memory of this YouTube video that I saw 10 years ago, and now of course I can't find it because the algorithm's just giving me the videos that were made in the past like 3 weeks, and I don't have the time to be scouring, so never mind. I used to have it, but that was an old computer and a hard drive, and I don't know where, and you just lose that stuff forever. And with the database, it'll always be there, whether that removal is intentional or otherwise, who cares? But we'll always be able to have that information so we can do further investigation. It's a monumental task. And, anybody that would say, well, I don't know why I should have to pay for it. Well, if for the prime features is just pretty obvious, because, to do this for absolute free, as to point that you're doing it already, you're going to have to be like Elon Musk, where you've just got so much money that you're making millions of dollars as you're sitting on the toilet, else you're going to be homeless, because there's no way, in order to be able to pay for all these people that you're going to need, and to even sustain a server upon itself or anything of the sort, So I mean, this is one of those ventures that I would be happy to contribute to.
I appreciate that. Look, if I do my job the right way, then the value should be obvious, and that's the way I'm looking at it. Is when the minimum viable product is ready and I take it to launch, and I've had some feedback from you guys and whoever else is involved in the alpha doesn't see that value, then I'm not doing something right, because the value is there. We know, just like Chris pointed out, all this information is out there, right? And the four of us and so many other researchers have gone out and bought the books and listened to the YouTube videos and gone through the Reddit comments and done the work and are still doing the work and will probably always be doing the work as long as we're, John and Chris and Daniel and Chase, right? But but having this centralized repository where all that information is there, right? And not being, like you said, John, kind of like gate kept by authors. Like, what if I don't have $50 to spend on a book that's out of print, right? Well, if it's in the database, right, sure, maybe you have to spend $20 a month, but you can literally keyword or phrase search, and it'll pull up all these instances and all the books that have ever been published. And so now you have access to all this intelligence. We're not infringing upon copyright information because I'm not giving you the full book. I'm giving you the snippet that's relevant to your search. And that's also the part that the large language model and the AI is trained on, and the value there. And like Chris said at the very beginning, of the AI being able to say, hey, you know what? It does seem like it's possible that we're infinite consciousness. Based on all these reports, it does seem like there's far more anecdotal evidence than is needed to prove that people actually remote view, that telepathy is actually real, that reincarnation is actually real. And there are a lot of fields like psychology that are purely ran by anecdotal evidence. So somebody asked me just the other day about how are you going to sift through the nonsense? And I said, you know what? You don't sift through anything. Everything is relevant. And maybe there's a confidence level assigned, and maybe the confidence level has to do with the emergent patterns. So like we all have alien abduction experiences that are similar, except for whatever reason mine isn't. And I say that I was in a green ship. Well, maybe my confidence level goes a little further down. Y'all are at 95%, I'm at 70%. Maybe you do it that way. I don't know. But the really nifty, interesting part is the LLM can do that mostly automatically and more efficiently than I ever could. So, utilizing tools like that is also really important. But if I do my job properly, then I don't think people are going to have a problem paying for the additional features. And I don't want to gatekeep and keep people from the core data either. I want to offer the majority of the information for free. I don't want to charge for it.
Thank you so much for this. I really appreciate you taking the steps forward in a serious manner, but enjoying yourself and doing it, and this is not just some kind of small pet project. This is a major undertaking. And so I applaud you for that.
Yeah, thanks.
I want to thank you for coming in and having this mini discussion about it. Because it's high time again that we just get this ball rolling, and this could really definitely help it.
Well, I'm shooting to have the MVP ready pretty quickly. So I'm hoping for maybe about a month, maybe sooner, to have an initial feature set available for the public to review for free.
Yep. So everybody sign up. Do it now. When you see this video, you go and you do it now. You get to the chopper. You make sure you get it done. What are you waiting for? Yeah. Do it now. Sign up for notifications. Sign up for updates. That is help by going to it. Help for signing up for it, because word gets out on it. It's going to be even more of a success, which is what we need. Not for Chase, not for him personally, not for us personally, for everybody. That's right.
Chase wants to put his head down and continue to research and update the database and make a mediocre salary and contribute to the community. That's what Chase wants to do. Maybe someday I'll figure out what the triangle is and the face. I don't expect to ever have a clear answer there, but maybe I can meet some other people that have had comparable experiences.
That's
I don't
right.
know.
Thank you so much, Chase, again for coming on to the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. Love talking with you, and we're going. I really hope that we can have you on again for more updates on the project. Also, just to come on and chat, because I always loved you sharing your stories or just thoughts on consciousness and the phenomenon in general. So again, thank you so much, Chase.
No, thanks so much, guys, and ditto. You know, I really enjoy the conversation, the company, and I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks again.
Okay, everybody, like, share, subscribe, keep updated. Again, sign up for updates, and follow us on all our social media. We're now on X, Twitter, and we'll go ahead and provide that link as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and stay safe and have fun.